I always start off with the head, and it's always an oval. In my mind, I sort of see her standing 3/4, maybe with a shield right here. All right. So this is what they call the gesture drawing. This is the time and place to make all your mistakes and to experiment and really just let the drawing find you. I hate to talk so, but it's really your opportunity to just let it go, as they say. Let's see what happens. And you can see I'm sort of mixing up drawing the edges, the silhouettes, right? The line that defines the exterior of the figure, but also kind of like clay, just kind of creating some interior guts here. Maybe a shadow, that would be one breast here, the other one here. The edge of that rib cage, the center line that goes from the neck all the way down, right? Right. And you start seeing kind of the drawing come to life. And because we have more time, I can kind of slow down and kind of walk you through all these kind of steps, but you don't have the luxury of just kind of taking your time. My influences for all the characters come from the artists I really loved as a kid. So people like Neil Adams, Frank Miller, George Perez, Kevin Nolan, Barry Windsor Smith. I went up to him and started talking to him about, I showed him my art, he gave me a critique, very kind, and he told me about that, and I've been using that ever since. You can also, you will quickly see, hopefully, mistakes that you have a blind spot in your own mind too. Okay. Okay. Tiara, hair, loin. Let's go this way. It's really, in my head, I'm not necessarily seeing a certain shape. I'm just letting the kind of pencil move around, and then as I see a line that I like, I kind of go, okay, I want to hit that line and get it to make that the silhouette. Then I'll probably put a robe on her. Okay, so you can actually see you're constructing the object over an object. Right. Pull back. She's kind of got her chest out a little too much. I'm going to pull back on that and kind of make her more standing upright. Embarrassing photograph. Anyway, but sort of the modern heroic pose is certainly more up and down. So I'm going to adjust everything in a little bit. You know, I'm going to do the one leg kind of slightly forward, the other one here. So you just have that suggestion of that. Yep, you have the shield, pick your center point. All these lines should be roughly the same distance, right? That distance, that distance here, that distance here. They're all, well, they get thinner over here, but these are more or less the same width. Like inking, you know, the individual pieces I've posted online, whether it's Batman or any of these other ones I've done. It's fun. People bring up old works to get signed, and man, some of that stuff from the 90s, I just don't understand it. And I'm talking about my own work. A number of things I would tell my younger self. First, don't sell your shares of Amazon. Jeez. In the 90s, I used to ton of Amazon stock and Apple, and I sold it way too, and eBay and Netscape, and I think of those, only Netscape was a loser. But man, I should have just bought and hold help, because that's advice number one. Piece of advice number one. Number two, don't sweat. I was really competitive when I was younger, and certainly when I was starting out my career, and everything seemed like kind of this life or death struggle. Like, oh my gosh, if I don't get this, if I don't have this kind of promotion, or this inker, or this color, so it just really kind of weighed on me and kind of preyed on my mind. And I think I would go back and say, don't sweat the little things. Like, focus on the big picture more. Think more about sort of long-term goals rather than short-term obsessions. But that's easier said than done. I think it's my current self might not be here if I didn't do all those. If I wasn't so obsessed about the crazy details early on in my career. So one would need a time machine and the ability to kind of go back and forth and see what happens if your younger self heeded the advice of your future self or current self. Accommodate vehicles moving at 90 kilometers per hour plus. It feels unreal, surreal. And then all these other cars are lined up, and other travelers are carrying their bags, and the police were up there with their sirens going, and demonstrators, and felt like I was in a third world country. No offense, Canada, I love you, but it was definitely different. How to draw breasts on women? Well, I just did it, so you can rewind to your heart's delight. I'll tell you, we have a lot of kids, and certainly my biggest priority is my family and the well-being of my kids. And I don't know if I have time for anything else besides like work and family. But we definitely do travel. I mean, we like to travel a lot, and we do watch some TV, but for the most part, like, the idea of being able to sit down and read a book is actually kind of a luxury. We just do that when we're on vacation. I'll grab a book and hopefully try to finish it. Anyway, so I'm just kind of... Okay, there's the W that goes here. And actually, once you have your structure, it's actually, the costume kind of comes at the end, and then the lines really have to go over the forms that you've created. And they do change subtly based on the shapes underneath. All right, so just being able to do that, kind of throw lines along a contour in rough sort of parallel, that's something that you just practice a lot. There's no real secret to it. And I don't even care if they match up or meet up here at this point, right here. I'll do that more with the inking. But you really should probably do it in the pencils. Okay. It's really good for these kinds of items like bracelets, capes, because these lines, which indicate form, are useful in creating this illusion of three-dimensionality. We are drawing a two-dimensional illustration. It is a line on a piece of paper that is fooling your brain into thinking it's seeing an object in 3D. And the way you fool the brain is by creating lines of perspective. To create volume, we're doing the same thing, these perspective lines, but they're not straight and they don't go towards a vanishing point, but they're basically lines that indicate the curvature of space and materials. Okay, so that's her thing. I wonder what I'm going to put on the shield. I'll put like a Medusa face or something. So it's going to feel a little flatter. because I want to differentiate this face from this face. This is going to feel simpler and more maybe it's going to be inked differently to suggest that it's metal. Where are you guys all from, by the way? Can you be curious to see where everyone's how awesome is technology? I'm telling you. Just mind blowing. All right. I'm going to probably put a bit of hair like that. There's a lot of detail, especially if I'm going to ink myself. I don't go to this level of detail. I'll probably started the inks way before this. Sorry, there's an off panel there. I'll work out this hand a little bit for you guys. Usually I just kind of create that shape. If you look at it, you can see the face here. It's right there. Right? That is this. There's the thumb right there. That's the first knuckle right there. But a good way of creating sort of form and structure in your fist is you go from that notch, loop it around. So your first knuckle's there, second knuckle's there, third, fourth, it might be hidden. All right. That's the turn. That's that big knuckle there. Hand turns down. Tendons go like that. And so that kind of stuck with me. And then when I did my Suicide Squad one, I was trying to channel that kind of energy and perspective. You know, I did a panel yesterday, or no, it's 2 days ago in Toronto, and I was just joking about like markers and this kid, this fan. He was kind of he was goofing on me, and I was kind of goofing on him. But we talked a little about markers and whether a marker was dead or not. And let me just say that I work with markers all the time, and they're things that I think if you do use tools all the time, and look, anyone can tell you whether it's a mechanic, house painter, someone that plays a musical instrument, you're able to do things with tools that other people can't just because you use them all the time. And so you can take like a 0.5, a thicker marker, and if you use kind of edge of it, you can actually produce a thinner line pretty consistently. As I go through and be like, oh, okay, screwed up with that, I'm going to fix that with whiteout, or I'm going to draw over it and fix it with an element of hair, maybe kind of hiding something, or I'm going to go back in and ink it, or white it out and re-ink it. So it's kind of a mental list of things that needs fixing. Okay. Actually, that's a combination of something that I'm trying to create versus kind of what just happens. And so even with this, I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to be able to change this expression into something that I like better. So, and I don't know if, Eric, if you feel the same thing, but there are times where you go like, oh, so now to the nose here, the shorthand for nose. It's a nostril, the tip of the nose, and then a shadow the other side. Shadow of this little frenum or whatever it's called. I don't know. Just kind of mumbled that word. Not the lips. And with the eyes, I'm really drawing just the top part of the eyes. It's almost as the eyeball itself, if you were to draw a circle, it's almost like there's water fluid on the bottom part, so you're only seeing the top part of the eyes. It's almost like they're about to start crying, but they haven't. And so when I draw an eye like this, and I want to draw the top part of the pupil, which is that, that's what I'm sort of suggesting, that idea that it's so, there's water in there, and it's reflecting a light source, and it just gives it a kind of a more haunting kind of look. Also creates a little more three-dimensionality, and I think it looks more dramatic. That would be kind of funny. Anyway. Here she looks a little bored. Hey, can't be heroic all the time. It's 11:10, so an hour's gone by. Trying to be mindful of the time. It is Labor Day here. I think we're going to go see the Dodgers tonight. So I gave you this whole song and dance about how I've got no time to do anything other than drawing in my family. I'm going to go to a baseball game tonight. But I'm going to go with my family, so kind of two things at the same time. So now I'm going to do the cheekbone here. And if you notice, I go from sort of a thinner line to lines that are more close together, approximating a black value or shade there. You know, when you first start, you think you have to memorize all the names of the muscles. And actually, you know who does? Yannick Paquette. I did a panel with him in Toronto. Guy's like got a very sort of similarly wired brain, the way he approaches drawing. And he's talking about all these like forearm muscles and the names of them. And I'm just like, wow. I have no idea. Okay. So I know I'm going to go back in with a brush on this hair, so I'm not going to worry too much about each of the different strands. I'll deal with it when it gets to white out and brush. So I'm just really going to try to capture some of the shapes. Now, if I were penciling this hair myself, I would go in and do every, sort of bit like this. So that's one way of doing hair, but the way I'm going to do hair, I think, on this piece, use a brush for the most part. And there's obviously time implications of doing it one way or the other. But they also look very different. You know, it's kind of whether you want something very rendered or something that looks more graphical and flat. So as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the form again. Everything, you're always thinking about the form. Always be forming, all right? ABF. That hair kind of goes like this over the head. So the highlight is going to be right along that. All right, it's going to be right there. And so as I render, as I get closer to that highlight, I'm going to leave it open like that. And then as I get away from that highlight into the shadow, it goes more to a black, okay? But you don't want to hit it so evenly across that highlight that it looks artificial. Hair is very unruly and chaotic in structure. Not chaotic, I can't even think of the word. It's not regular, random. Okay. Right, so then even here, there's going to be a highlight there. But you don't want to put too many highlights because then it looks over-rendered. So you sort of course correct, and you're editing the entire way as you're drawing something. You're doing things because you know the structure is there, you have your techniques, you have, you know, where the shadows should be, the highlights should be, and you go ahead and do that. But that, like, towards the end, you're gonna look at the sum total of the drawing and go like, oh, you know what, the drawing would look better if there was a stronger light source here and everything else were black, and you'll go back in with a brush or whatever and fill it in. But that's something you're thinking in your head as you're working on the piece. So it's just the same way if you were writing an essay or a paper, you're putting your thoughts down, but then even as you're writing it, you're either going to edit it on the fly or go back and delete sentences or words that don't make sense or clutter the meaning, bad grammar, syntax. I like to compare drawing to a lot of other things, whether it's math, writing, music. So I think it helps gives insight to the process and other ways of approaching it that might give you guys some insight on how to tackle a project. You know what I'm going to do? A weird abstract thing here. And all I'm doing here with this sort of ornament thin down that, shape it down there, shape down that sheet. This is too slow, too fast. I can't imagine it'd be too fast. But 15-hour one, there's probably a lot more erasing obviously going on and redrawing. It's really not about the time. It's like how focused and in the zone you are. If you have an image in your head and you're able to go and you're warmed up and you've been drawing all week and you're not too physically tired, you can go in and crank out a great cover in 3 to 5 hours. And then there are other covers where if you're just physically tired or don't feel inspired, you can still turn out something good. It just might take you a lot longer, and so you spend 15 hours on something that's kind of comparable. So time is really not a great indicator of anything other than sometimes if they're just things that are very, very detailed, it might take more. But even detail, like, man, if you're sort of at full steam, full speed, I can do that stuff pretty fast. But that Wonder Woman cover, because it's only one figure and she's fighting a robot, and it's always interesting when I tell people like how long it took to do something. Half the people are like, that's why I find it kind of sort of almost meaningless to tell people any or belief of how long it takes to do what we do. So as you see, as I ink, and one of the reasons I didn't tape this down is even though I can kind of throw the pen probably at all different angles, multi-talented that way. It's easiest to throw it at certain angles as it's most accustomed to create the lines that you want exactly in the direction that you want, the width that you want, the energy that you want. Okay. And inkers do the same thing. So it's a lot easier to draw moving the paper around. Again, that's another reason why digital, to me, is that way. So I'm going to takes a little more time, I guess. And if you notice that I'm moving the pen pretty fast, you can actually hear it kind of, the plastic nib whip across the page. So that means that it's kind of barely making contact. And a lot of times to get the thickness or the darkness of the line, I'm kind of hitting that line a couple times. So I'm hitting that line 1, 2, 3, 4, all in the same spot for the most part. So again, hitting that, the ability to kind of hit that line over and over again, something that comes about through practice and repetition. And at some point here, I'm going to switch over to a thicker marker, like 0.8. So I kind of remind myself to breathe sometimes. I find myself holding my breath. I'm not sure I follow, but it's pretty easy rotating the paper this way. I don't know how it can get any better or simpler. Hold on one. I didn't quite like the flow of that fist there, so I just shaved off a little bit there. If I were penciling this like as a cover, I would be penciling and erasing a lot more. Because this is a piece that I'm inking myself, it's just going to be a little looser, rougher. Have any of you guys followed other types of Twitch streams, like watching people like play Dungeons and Dragons? I saw that some tweets about it last night. I don't know like how engaging that would be, but then again, you're watching someone draw, so I don't know. I guess at some point there's always an argument to be made that watching anything firsthand would be like a Korean thing, right? I mean, it's all over now, but there are YouTube sites where people get suggestions on what to eat, and people tune in to watch that. Yeah. So other things I like to do with my family, we like to game, mostly video games, but I do want to get them into D&D at some point, but I actually want like that, and then like that. Makes it easier to, so I'm going to fix that with whiteout. I'm going to get a video capture card and be able to split the screen on one of the computers, or 2 gaming computers, so that we can also Twitch some gaming sessions. Overwatch, Counter-Strike, we already did that. Sims 3, people still play that game. One of the best games on. You see this game, these lines here, not the straightest, not the best, but I'll tell you that Anytime you move away from this area, which is the center of focus of the drawing, you don't have to be as concerned about level of detail, line crispness. In fact, I think it looks better sometimes if the lines get more abstract and flowy and just kind of scribbly as you move away from that area. You know, Bill Sienkiewicz to me is a master at that, where he kind of combines things that are super tight and focused and other elements that are very raw and loose and rough. And he creates that dynamic between control and looseness, chaos and control that makes the drawings come to life. It's not about having a deadline and the same level of control throughout the drawing, although that is completely an approach, and there are artists that do that. I'm less like interested in those kinds of drawings. I like it when there are variations in focus and ability, not ability, focus and attention and line control, line weight, all that kind of stuff. And so as we move away from the center of interest, it can get more abstract and can have more energy and flow, and that helps contribute other elements to the drawing that aren't necessarily technical in nature or structure. Triangle of interest. People look. I think we're hardwired to look at the face of anything. That's communication. So when you draw something, people are going to look to the eyes for emotional content, emotional subtext, context. I'm going to be hardwired that way. So good to know. All right. So point 8, it's almost on its last legs too. Thing with a dead marker is, again, you can get thinner line with it, especially if you apply just a little pressure and move very quickly. So I'm getting to the point where I'm almost done with all the line work. And go in with a brush. Bring it on home. If you guys are just tuning in now, you have come to the Jim Lee Twitch.tv channel. I am live sketching this drawing of Wonder Woman in a rebirth costume. Donate the proceeds to relief efforts for those affected by Hurricane Harvey. I haven't quite figured out which charity that's going to be. Obviously, there's always, whenever these things happen, there's all sorts of banter and debate about broadcasts I missed while traveling or working or whatever. Really quick. You know, in ancient Greeks, they couldn't do eyeballs, so they just make it black. They would hollow it out, like those old statues. Maybe they put like colored stone in there to represent the peoples. I don't know. Okay. Okay. This is metal. It's going to look kind of have a similar texture to the rock, but it's going to be a little more fine tuned. Choose old lovely snake. It's kind of fun inking stuff like this because it's very organic. You can make all sorts of mistakes and kind of really just draw on the fly. And that's to separate it from this is supposed to represent reality, so it's not going to have the same degree of weathering. So the line is just going to be a little rougher, looser. It usually takes me like 5 days to kind of get up to speed. But when I draw a book, I will jump out of order. I don't draw page one and then page two and then three, four. I will jump around. In fact, I won't. A lot of times I'll save like the best page in the book or the most visually appealing till like that sixth day, and then I'll tackle it. I mix it around because if I am on fumes by the end of the deadline, I have to kind of crank on that last page or so. It might end up being a page 6 or a page 3. It's not going to be page 20 every single time. So it's a challenge sometimes to keep the continuity, the story continuity, consistent. But I find that gives me the best sort of results, and I've been doing that for many, many years. So there's some symmetry, obviously, to this, as to many sort of shields, vases, all that kind of stuff. All right. It's almost noon. I'm going to definitely go longer, I think. Get this done. I still don't want to do a very quick sort of headshot as a giveaway for you guys that have tuned in. I actually got a subscriber. There's a person that subscribed to my channel, which was unexpected, very cool. I'm still kind of learning about this whole phenomenon, live streaming, and I will figure out some way to something for like just the people that subscribe to get in on some cool stuff. I haven't quite figured out what yet, but I'll figure it out. There's no rush. I'm just really looking to sort of understand and have some fun with this. So thank you for that person that subscribed. Okay. Okay. Now let's see if I can figure out where the rest of our hair is going to be. I had a lot more of this hair kind of up here, but I'm deciding against that at this point. I think I'll bring it more down here. There's going to be some mottling, M-O-T-T-L-I-N-G, weathering, stippling, whatever. It's actually thicker than stippling. I think mottling is the correct term. I'm going to stick with that. All right. Oh, man. All right, let's do this. Again, thing with the brush, it's like any other tool. The more you use it, the more comfortable it feels, the more you're able to use it like a pen. At first, it's going to feel very strange because it's such a flexible nib tip, and you don't know how much ink you're going to get when you press down on it. Just work through it. Realize you will get better at it. Like playing a musical instrument, the more you use it, the better control you'll have, and you're going to be able to. Mistake there. And you see I just kind of model on that side. Light sources there for the most part. Well, it is now. And with the brush, you can tell that it holds ink for quite a while. And as the brush starts losing ink, it goes into a state which we call a dry brush. A dry brush has ink in it still, but not enough to give you a super dense line. I can already feel like the ink is already running out right now. But a dry brush has a lot of value and use in inking. And so when it gets to this point, which it seems to be at, see how you kind of get a gray line there? And that's the closest thing to a pencil tonal value that you'll get using brush in the ink. And so I'm able to go in now and do some metal effects. So I've almost come in kind of using the brush to fill in black areas, waiting for the opportunity to do this. It's 12 o'clock now, Pacific time. I'm working on this now for maybe an hour and a half. Getting pretty close though. And as it gets drier and drier, you kind of have to keep repeating the movement to kind of get anything out of it, which is fine. Again, the more you do this, the more control you have, you'll know what you're going to get. You feel it looks random, but again, when you do it quite a bit, you're able to, you are going to get some random shapes and lines and values, but for the most part, you kind of know what you're going to get. But yeah, that's the hardest part. On your back, on your joints, like, you know. But I still enjoy drawing, so that's kind of what makes it worth. And I'll tell you the best feeling. The best feeling is not when you're done. All right, thank you. That's a very nice compliment. The background's kind of impressionistic, right? It's shadows. It suggests detail without actually including a lot of detail. So this dry brush is great for metal effects, essentially. All right. and happy accidents, and where to put these shadows and lines. A lot of life drawing will kind of teach you where highlights on the human face are, right? We'll put some of these kind of darker shadows. And some thinner lines. The thing with reflections is you don't want it to all look the same in terms of thickness and and um, line weight and all that stuff. So I'm using dry brush technique here, even on the cloth, but not as dry as the metal, right? To suggest a material like velvet or some sort of other coarse wool type thing. Okay. Now what's going to make all this feel metallic and shiny is you hit the lines with white out at the end. And so in my mind, I know I'm going to do that. Okay. Then we'll go with darker values around this face to make this center part pop out. Right? It's like that old Mitch Hedberg joke. I was going to get a tan, but I decided to whiten my teeth instead. Approximately, that's the joke. So to make this lighter in value, I can put more white out effects on it, or I can just make things around it darker. And in contrast, it will pop out. Brush effect. What I like about doing this kind of thing is that the brush, because it has a certain pattern to the hairs, it will give you a sort of a random but regular shape, and you can use that to great effect in creating textures. And the illusion of patterns. Hit that coarse shadow using this brush. So there's just going to be a darkness in this general area that you'll see if you kind of squint at the drawing more. Then it gets lighter over here. All right, you guys see that? Pretty much anywhere. I've drawn them in hotel rooms, on the floor of train stations, on the floor of trains, sitting in my seat on a plane. My office tends to be pretty messy. I've got drawing supplies all around me on the floor. I am definitely a horizontal organizer. And I did that early on in my career because I didn't want to be an artist that was basically only able to kind of draw and create if I was in my studio with my brushes, with my tools, etc. So I'm pretty much inking kind of the wells, the areas that would be kind of hidden in shadows, um, shadows created by the curvature of the hair itself. And then once I do that, I'm going to pull back, and I'm not really looking at the overall thing. I'll look back at the overall thing in a second. See where I'm at. Adjusting the values and filling in some of these gray shapes that I had. All right, see what, so it feels more solidified, so it doesn't look like those, just a bunch of line work here and a bunch of black shapes over here. Hit some white out there, because obviously the tiara is kind of disappearing into the hair. I need more of these kind of shapes here. Put some depth. And obviously this is all kind of rough, and will be cleaned up when I do white out and stuff like that. Alright, I'll give it a little eyeshadow here, make that nose pop a little bit, color the lips, give a little bit of a highlight, extend that gray out. Okay. So create some values here using just a pencil. Okay, and start making some corrections. This line here. Takes a second for the stuff to dry, so you don't want to smear it. So I have to kind of jump around, and I've got that mental hit list of things I need to fix. Clean that up a little bit. Stiples here. Right here. Basically hitting the top side of all the segmented armor. That's what gives it sort of a 3D sheen to it. So just cleaning up some of the line work, making some values darker, thinning out some of the whiteout effects so it doesn't look like, you can tell that I use a one thickness kind of whiteout marker to create all my whiteout effects. Cast shadow here to suggest the curvature of the thighs. Finish up the hair here. Kind of drawing lines back into the white shapes that I created. So they don't look like white blobs on black space. Hopefully like strands of hair blowing in the wind. All right, it is 12:35. I'm done with this piece. So like I said at the beginning, this piece will be put on eBay. The proceeds will go towards relief efforts for those affected by Hurricane Harvey. And now I'm going to do a very, very quick headshot for somebody out there. All right, so I will post this, I'll scan it and post it up on my Instagram page. I can't wait to be outbid on eBay. That's the spirit. All right.